All right, we're going to start talking about another principle of Boolean algebra called DeMorgan's law. Now, this is going to be a very specific type of theorem that we're going to be using. So I'm going to give some context to this. Let's start off with a truth table. And let's do our truth table has inputs x and y. So we have 4 options. And in here, let's do first in red, x ended with y. So it's a 0, a 0, a 0, and a 1. Then in blue, let's do x, y, the whole quantity with a bar over it. So we're going to negate what's in red. So a 0 becomes a 1, the 0 becomes a 1, the 0 becomes a 1, and the 1 becomes a 0. And then in green, we're going to do x bar ordered with y bar. Okay, so x is 0, a bar would be 1, so we get a 1. X is 0, a bar would be a 1. Next, y is a 0, so it would be a 1. And then a 0 and a 0, that would be a 0. Okay, so we did that. And look again, we have 2 expressions that turn out to be the same. And if we were to grab these, they do not fall in any of the theorems that we did in the last class. They would be different. Well, let's also take this and let's extend that out a little bit more. And let's do x. Let me do this in a different color. Let's do orange here. Let's do orange as x plus y with a bar over it. So 0 and 0 is 0, so that would be a 1. A 1 and a 0 or together, a 0 and a 1 ORed is 1, bar is a 0. We get a 1, bar is a 0. We get a 1, bar with a 0. And then in purple, let's do x bar ended with y bar. Okay, so 0 not is 1, 0 not's 1. So 1 and 1 is 1. Then these are going to be a 1 and a 0. That would be a 0 and a 1 is a 0. And then 0, 0, it would also be a 0. And again, we get the same values. All right, so let's look at these items and see what it is that we see happening. So we have x and a y. That quantity has a bar over it. And that was the same as x bar plus a y bar. Then the other expression was the quantity x or y with a bar over it. It's the same as x bar dot y bar. All right, so the conclusions we're going to make is somehow these are equal. And how they are equal is we can form these expressions with using what is called DeMorgan's law. All right, so what is this DeMorgan's law going to do for us? Okay, so DeMorgan's is simple. DeMorgan's is going to say, I'm going to take an expression f. Maybe it's made up of a couple of different variables. And if I have a bar over it, I can take that and we can convert it. The way we're going to convert it is we're going to say an OR transfers into an AND is going to get converted to an OR. If we had a variable A, that gets converted into an A bar. If we have an A bar, that would get converted into an A. So we're going to be making some flips that are going to happen. Okay, so how do these flips happen is let's go back to our previous example. In that previous example, let's do I had X plus Y that had a quantity with a bar. All right, so we're going to do DeMorgan's. When I do DeMorgan's, I'm going to take that expression and let me just write it again. So I'm going to make some changes. The changes are this top part is going to say apply the convert. To do the conversion, we're going to take the OR, it becomes an AND. We're going to take the X, it'll be X bar. We're going to take the Y, and it would become a Y bar. All right, let's do the other one. The other one was XY with a bar over it. Okay, so here we have a dot. We're going to apply the DeMorgan's. The dot becomes a plus. We get an X with a bar over it, and then we're going to get a Y with a bar over it. So it's the process of us taking items and slowly evolving it. All right, so let's do an example that has quite a bit of terms. Let's do the example that I have a quantity of A plus B with another quantity inside it of C plus D. So let's do this item here. And that's going to have a bar over it. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to substitute. Okay, so I'm going to say A plus B is X, C plus D is Y. Okay, so I do that. Let me rewrite it that I'm doing X ended with Y, and here I have a bar. And now I'm going to do DeMorgan's. So I'm going to do DeMorgan's on this. The AND becomes an OR. I get X with a bar over it, and then I'm going to get Y with a bar over it. All right, let's substitute back in. Okay, so X was A plus B. That has a bar over it. Plus, and now the Y is C plus D. That's going to have a bar over it. Okay, now that I have quantities with bars over it again, let's take this one here. We're going to do DeMorgan's on it. How do I do DeMorgan's on that? The OR becomes an AND, D bar, C bar. This plus just comes down on its own because there's no DeMorgan's on it. That was the original item. And then we're going to do this term. We'll do DeMorgan's again. So the dot, the plus becomes a dot. I get B bar, A bar. And then that's how we do the DeMorgan's. Let's just clean it up a little bit. That is A bar, B bar, or C bar, D bar. So you're going to want to work on individual terms. All right, let's do one more example. Let's do an example of I have a quantity of A, B bar plus C, and it with a D bar. Let me put the ands in so we can see them, plus E. All right, so that all has a bar. Okay, where I'm going to start? I'm going to start substituting. I'm going to say this is X. I'm going to say this is Y. I'm going to do DeMorgan's. To do DeMorgan's, this comes down. That becomes an AND. So I'm going to put parentheses. That way I can keep items together. So it becomes E bar. Oh, hold on. Let me put the Y first before I substitute back in. So that's a Y bar. And then we're going to have an X bar. All right. At this point, I'm going to substitute back in. So I have the quantity of A ended with B bar plus C ended with D bar. All of that has a bar over it. that's ended with our E with a bar over it. It's important that you keep quantities together because we do everything on a term. All right, now we're going to take this piece here in purple, and we're going to do DeMorgan's. To do the DeMorgan's, I'm going to take this. I'm going to say that's X. I'm going to say that's Y. All right, so then I'm going to have an X dot Y with a bar over it. From that X dot Y with a bar over it, the N becomes an OR. I have a Y bar. I have an X bar. That's a quantity. That's ended with our E bar. And I'll just leave that in brackets as well. All right, so let's substitute back in. I'm going to substitute back in. You know, the E part stays the same, unchanged. Here, I got a plus. The plus is I have a D bar with a bar over it. We'll take care of that in a bit. Then I have an A dot B bar plus C. And then that quantity has a bar over it. All right, I'm going to take care of this D bar bar. The two bars cancel out. So let me write that down as A dot B bar plus C. That has a bar plus now this is just D. That's a quantity with E bar. All right, we're getting closer to coming to the end. I have another item with a bar over it. So that's more DeMorgan's I'm doing. I'm going to take an X. I'm going to take a Y. So for that little piece there, that is X plus a Y with a bar over it. Okay, I'm going to do the conversion. The OR becomes an N. I get a Y bar. I get an X bar. All right. The rest is still there. The D ended with the E. All that still remains. No big change there. I'm going to substitute back in. Okay, so when I substitute back in, I have X was A and B bar. That has a bar over it. Ended with C. That has a bar. That's plus D. That's with E with a bar. Okay, so we're almost there. We just have one more bar item that we need to deal with. So again, I'm going to do DeMorgan's. Okay, so that would come out to be, here I have an X and a Y with a bar over it. Okay, how's that going to get transformed? The dot becomes a plus. I get a Y bar. I get an X bar. All right, so let me substitute back in. I'm going to write out the whole equation this time. I got a bracket. I got a bracket. In this case, A was X, Y bar was Y. So I got an A bar plus I got a B bar, which is Y with a bar over it. We'll take care of that in a bit. That gets ended with C bar. And then we have that quantity ORed with D. And we get all of that ended with an E bar. Okay, so I got items with bar over bar. Let me just highlight that. We're going to clean that area up. I'll go to parentheses here instead of square brackets. So I say it's A bar plus B. That is with C bar. That's with D. And then all that brackets is with E bar. And that's how we can do the DeMorgan's theorem.